Now, the ACTU have decided as we head into these productivity roundtables, as the government likes to call them, that they are going to do everything they possibly can to stymie any increase in productivity. In fact, they want to send us backwards. But what is most galling is that now that this thing has morphed into a tax reform talk fest, the ACTU wants to remove any tax incentives from property investors. Steve Chandler is a property development expert and managing director of Lefter and joins us now. Steve, good morning.
Morning, Steve.
There's two problems with this. Firstly, that this view that, and we know that about 80-odd% of property investors, residential property investors in Australia, are mums and dads who might own one or two investment properties, but we paint this picture that they're evil millionaires out to rort the system. But the tax incentives that the ACTU are talking about getting rid of, I would have thought are only going to exacerbate the rental crisis we've got at the moment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, when you look at the raft of these changes and the way the ACTU are effectively, putting it out there is anyone who earns a lot of money, obviously trying to rort the system, and therefore we have to tax them into oblivion. And yet it's these people that, work hard and earn money, and, the people who are in the upper echelon bracket of income earning, these people are the people who invest in the larger scale projects, and they've got their family trusts and things like that, but mate, those family trusts invest money. And if we don't have this substantial investment continuing to happen, then we haven't got investment properties. And if we haven't got investment properties, that means there's no rentals, and our current housing crisis is just going to get bigger and bigger.
What I find extraordinary about this, though, is that we're talking about getting rid of tax incentives for Australian investors investing in these projects, but then at the same time we'll say, well, we need these build-to-rent projects, but it's okay if we give foreign investors a tax break to invest in them.
Yeah, look, to me, if you look at the large-scale property development, the big property developers, yes, they build, these substantial number of homes every year, but when you look at what those numbers are compared to the total numbers, they might be 25%. It's the small-scale investors and small developers that create the substantial amount of rental properties and housing in the country.
But it's the other thing that nobody ever says this out loud is that these bigger corporate investors, whatever tax breaks you take away from them, they'll find another way around that. Whereas the smaller investors, who, as you say, are producing the bulk of our housing stock, don't have the capacity to get around these things. No,
they can't. They rely on, everybody's favourite, negative gearing. And, the ACTU are saying, let's muck around with that as well. And, again, if the mums and dads out there are creating, are buying investment properties that are, like 75% of the stock that's, out there, then if you disincentivise those people, what are you going to do? You're going to create a massive shortage of housing that's even worse than what we've got now. Plus, those mums and dads, when they hit retirement, will not have money to self-fund. And that means more, hey, we need the old age pension and support. It makes no sense what they're saying.
But the other issue I have, Steve, is that all the talk is around tinkering with projects that are already underway or already going to be built, but we don't talk about releasing more land. We don't talk about providing the infrastructure to service new greenfield developments. We don't talk about the real ways we can actually increase housing stock. What we're doing is talking about, well, there's a little bit happening now. Let's see if we can stuff that up.
Yeah, well, that they can do very, very well. I mean, red tape is the other thing. When you look at the development consents, the approvals that are coming out, 25 years ago, a DA might have taken 30 days to get approved. Now I know in New South Wales the current number's around 100 days. It's 3 times as long. There's so many things that they could do instead of just saying, hey, let's go and tax people into oblivion. Why don't we look at the processes and procedures that we've got in place and take it back a scale, a notch, so that developments can get out there faster and cheaper. And the sooner that we get anything that enables us to deliver a product for cheaper, then we're going to have more housing.
I talk about this with the property council and master builders quite often, in that, when I worked in real estate and property development, and granted it was more than 25 years ago, but, if you were building a standard 3-bedroom brick home in a suburb somewhere in Canberra, Sydney, Melbourne, wherever it might be, on a standard 500 or 600 square metre block, you could get the approvals through council or whoever the regulatory authority is in about 6 weeks, and then you could build it in 3 months. Well, you're not building somebody who wants to build a standalone home is not doing it in anywhere less than 12 months now.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, isn't it? It really is.
And building is, I would have hoped that the building practice has become more efficient than it was back then.
Theoretically, it is if the builder stays on site to keep the building going. But most of them have multiple homes on the go at any given time, and they don't have the resources to keep them all going at the same time. That's a problem.
And you would remember this too, but I'm talking about the time when chippies would go out and build the frames on site. Well, that doesn't happen anymore.
No, it's all in the factory, and theoretically, that's supposed to be faster and cheaper. And look, it is faster and cheaper to build them in a factory, in a jig, and all that sort of stuff. But then you've got to transport it to site. It sits on site for 2 weeks until the chippies show up, and it just, for some inexplicable reason, it's just not faster.
There's all sorts of problems. We could spend hours talking about this, Steve. I do appreciate your time.
Thanks, Steve.
All the best. Steve Chandler, property development expert and managing director of Lefter.